Welcome to the St. John Fisher's Pioneer Class's Oral History. With us today we have Dr. Donald Muench, he was a graduate of the first class, and he also is a professor still here today. So we're very lucky to have him, and he'll definitely have an interesting perspective. So why did you choose to come to Fisher?
Very interesting. Well, Fisher, as you know, was founded in 1948, the actual incorporation of the institution. But the first classes didn't begin until 1951. Well, I graduated from Aquinas in 1951. And, well, where do you go to college? Well, we heard about this Catholic college in Rochester that was starting up, but we didn't know whether it was going to be built or open in time. I had applied also to the University of Rochester. I was accepted there, so I had that to go to, so I was pretty much set. Well, okay, I'm going to go to the U of R, but let's see how this other place turns out. And so it did open, so I came here. Also, I didn't feel like I was taking any great risks in doing that, because we had a number of people from my graduating class at Aquinas who are a heck of a lot smarter than I. And I thought, if they want to take the chance, I'm going to take the chance too, and it should be fun.
Yeah.
And furthermore, if the college fails, after a year or two, and just doesn't make it, that's fine too, because you could always go to another place. So I wasn't concerned. I'm very naive.
Yeah, because nowadays I would be terrified to go to a college that had no reputation, no experience.
Yes.
And so most of the professors were priests then, or fathers?
Most were, but not everybody. Not everybody. One of the faculty in the accounting department, the one that founded the accounting department, his name was Bob Duplessis. In fact, he was like my freshman advisor, I think it was, when I came, even though I wasn't going to major in accounting or anything, but he was the advisor to help make sure that I got the right course and all. But he was a lay person, he was not a priest. It seems to me that chemistry had a lay person also, Dr. Karl Klaus, like in Santa Claus. Dr. Karl was PhD in chemistry, founder of the chemistry department, and the chemistry department's academic reputation has been sterling throughout the whole time.
Yeah. And
it started out that way. So he was not a priest. We did have a priest for mathematics. We had one in physics. Thinking of courses that I was taking, philosophy, history. Those were Basilian priests. So there were a number of others. Yeah.
So obviously we had no dorms or any living on campus.
Right.
To my understanding, they didn't even have like a cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that? Like, how did you eat while you were here? Because you had a long bus ride.
I'm glad you asked that. And perhaps others will mention this as well. One of the students decided he'd go into business while a student and make sandwiches for the kids that want to eat, So I'm trying to think what his name was. I think his name was Frusky, and I think the name that we gave to his establishment, I'll put quotes on it, his establishment was El Frusco. We called it El Frusco. And he made sandwiches. I said, yeah, you could buy sandwiches from him. And that was it. That's the beginning of the cafeteria, so to speak.
Did he have a very lucrative business?
Well, he was the only one doing it. A lot of people brought their own food with them, sandwiches and whatnot. But if you didn't have anything, okay, he'd make up a sandwich for you and charge you some suitable amount.
Now, what were the classes actually like? The class size, like, were they lecture or discussion, or?
They were, for the most part, lecture back in those days. some discussion, but it was primarily a lecture-based organization back then. The size in our first class, well, the first class we had, I think we started out with about 110 students, and only about 57 or 58 of them graduated. So retention of students was not a big issue. If you didn't make it, you didn't make it. That was it. So we sometimes were known as a college that was easy to get into, but hard to stay in, as it turned out. But the class size, I'm thinking of any individual class might have 20 students in there. Of the core courses that everybody had to take. But anything in your major, that could be anything from 15 to 20, 25 maybe, possibly.
Now you have such an interesting perspective as you're now a professor here. So how do you think the classroom has changed since you were a student to now when you're a professor?
Oh, how has it changed? Well, certainly that was one physical change is that in many of the classrooms now you can move the chairs around and you might have individual tables with a few chairs around them, and so you'd have the groups working together at a table, and they may be carrying on a discussion activity or problem-solving activity, as the case may be. It wasn't so much the case back in the old days. Then you had the professor up in the front and tell you to do this and do that, and you did it, and you took good notes, and yeah, there'd be some things to work on while in the classroom, but it wasn't a discussion kind of thing, except when there were questions that were asked, and somebody would have to raise their hand, answer the question, or maybe demonstrate what the solution was or something like that.
So it wasn't because today, I mean, it's a lot of working together with the other students. That wasn't really the case back then?
No, although you did have that in the sciences, the biology labs and the chemistry labs, physics labs, and that was all cooperative, working together on lab assignments, and that we'd be working together on it.
So did you participate in any club activities or like intramural sports or something like that?
The only intramural sports, I guess there were some guys got something going there with touch football or some things like that. Yeah. What was the other question you had about
like
that?
Clubs?
Oh, clubs, yeah. Yeah, there were clubs. They were, I'm trying to think what it was right away. Well, one of the things done right away was the college newspaper, which was called The Pioneer. And I did do some occasional work on that as well. So we did have some clubs. I'm trying to think what some of them might have been. I'm not sure.
And so it was an all-male school.
Yes.
But Nazareth, right down the road, was all girls. So
Yeah.
did you have like joint activities with Nazareth, or like if you had dances, were like it was combined?
Not in any class-related things. But what we did have was if there was a dance, Christmas ball or something like that. Oh, okay, we can ask this girl out. And there was always guys that knew girls over there at Nazareth. Some of them were more aggressive in knowing who they were than I was at the time. So I had no problem going to different events of that sort. But at Nazareth in those days, you couldn't, no such thing as going up into their room anything like that. Oh, no.
So did you ever have like summer classes or take classes at night, or was it just during the day?
It was day. I remember in one of the physics courses that when we were doing some lab work in physics, we were actually working well into the night on the project that we were working on, well into the night. We're talking about maybe not leaving until midnight or something like that.
And how would you get home at that time? Because there was no
Well,
on-campus
some of us
living.
had cars, so we've got our way out. Yeah. We worked it out.
Yeah. And was it weird coming to a school, or was it hard for you to come to a school that there wasn't like an upperclassman that could help you like fit in or help with the transition? Was it weird coming to college and just kind of you were the like person or the people who were going to set the standard?
We were the college, so we made it up as we went along, as to what was going to be happening there. So yeah, no, I didn't miss at all any sophomores, juniors, seniors, or anything like that. I didn't miss any of that at all. It just didn't occur to me. I figured, hey, this is my work. We're doing our stuff, and whether we have upperclassmen around, it doesn't really matter. We got to do this work.
And then as freshmen started coming in, as you grew, did you help them, or was there a relationship, or was it strictly you guys stayed with your senior class and they stayed with
We
theirs?
pretty much stayed together. However, I think most of us know a lot of the students that were, say, in the class of 56, the one that immediately followed us. Because for one thing, in the class of 56, we were sometimes in the same courses that they were. For example, we had to take science courses, so I needed to take a couple of semesters of chemistry. And I didn't have that in my program as a freshman, so I took it as a sophomore. So I was in the freshman chemistry course while I was a sophomore. And of course, all those people, so many of those people that were in the chemistry course of the freshman class, a good number of them went on to graduate and eventually get PhDs, get jobs at Kodak and whatever. So they were brilliant students. So I did get to know them.
And so your graduating class at the end, who walked across the stage, there was 58 of you.
Okay.
And were you close with everyone? Did everyone know each other, or did you just stay within your majors for the most part?
No, we all knew one another. Sometimes more than we would know some other ones, that we would see. But we were all, pretty much a family for the most part.
It was a liberal arts school, as it is still today.
Yeah.
And do you think that foundation in liberal arts helped you later on with schooling, or do you think it didn't really have an effect?
Oh, I think it had an effect because it got me interested in a lot of things I wouldn't otherwise be interested in. We had had to take philosophy courses. Now, am I still interested in philosophy? Not so much now, but over the years, occasionally looking at philosophical questions and so forth, I might read something about it. We also had theology. We call it religious studies now, but we took real theology courses here. And I have to say that knowing that has helped me navigate through my life of faith and so forth. Whether it's what they expected of me is something else now, but nonetheless, I had a foundation anyway.
Now, how do you think attending Fisher shaped who you were later on in life? Or do you think it had an effect?
Oh, it probably indeed had some effect here. It shaped me in that I certainly built up confidence that I could do this college work. I was a fairly decent student at Aquinas. I wasn't the top-notch student or anything like that, but I was good at it. And then in college now, things are harder, more demands made, and I found out that I can do this, and I think that helped a lot. And then gave me the idea that, yes, I could go on to graduate study and so forth.
Now, you obviously liked Fisher enough to come back and be part of the faculty. Mm-hmm. What made you want to come back?
Okay, that wasn't in the script coming back here, because after graduation and that, we did have a draft, a military draft, and I did get drafted, and for 2 years I was in the Army, but I had a great job there in the Army. in the Aberdeen Proving Ground scientific labs. And while I was there, I took a couple of graduate courses that were extension courses there at the Aberdeen Proving Ground from one of the nearby universities. And I thought, I guess I really can do this kind of thing. And the work that I was doing at Aberdeen was scientific, mathematical work. I said, I guess I can do this okay. And so when I got out of the Army, when I was getting out of the Army, of course the lab offered me a job, but I wanted to go to grad school. And that's how I ultimately then went to St. John's in New York. And got my master's degree there. So I get the master's degree, and I needed 6 more hours, so I came back home here to Rochester and went to the U of R for 6 credits of a course that I needed to finish my requirements for the master's degree, transferred back to St. John's. And while there, they had all these different ads and posters and so forth for employment possibilities in the graduate school there. And I noticed this job at the Naval Academy. So I applied and went to the Naval Academy. So I was there for several years. But when I'd come home, I would stop by on campus. And Father Joe Dorsey was the dean. Dorsey Hall is named after him.
I lived there.
Joe Dorsey was the dean. And he said, we got to get you to come back, because you've got this other experience and so forth, so we'd like to have you come back. I said, okay, I'll think about it. Well, I didn't think about it too much, because it was a good job down there at Annapolis. But then after a few years there, and a couple children, grandparents are up here, all family and everything, I said, maybe I'll just see what the possibilities are to come back to Fisher. So I checked it out with Father Dorsey, and the rest is history for that. So,
now, what year did you come and start teaching here?
I started teaching here in the fall of 1966.
So still an all-male school?
When I came, I guess basically it was. We didn't officially become co-ed until just a short time later, two, 3 years later maybe, that we became co-ed. But we did have Nazareth students who would need a course that we offered that they didn't, so they would come. So you could meet some Nazareth students in a class, and vice versa. There were Fisher students that went down to Nazareth and took courses there. Again, courses that weren't offered here, but what they had there.
So you have really, you were in the first graduating class, and now you're still a professor here. How do you think the school has changed?
Well, it's changed quite a bit. Well, for one thing, it's not as Catholic as it was. However, what we now have, I think, is a college that's more like a university. Or I could put it this way, we have a university that's more like a college. So, which is a different feel to it from what it was in the old days.
And a lot of the other interviews I've done, they said that when you were students, you had very strong personal relationships with your teachers and fathers. You knew each other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And do you think that coming here and you had those personal relationships with your professors and you guys were friends, that now as a professor you try to make those same relationships the way you did? Or?
Possibly so, yes, yeah.
And do you think the students are still as close with the faculty as they were when you graduated?
Some are, with certain faculty. I mean, they're not going to be close to any. You give me a professor's name and student name. Are they friends? Probably not, from the laws of probability. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't be, and at least friends with somebody. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that you'll find that professor-student friendships do occur. But it's not like every professor I'm a friend of every student and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's not that at all.
And now we still cap our classes to be 20 to 25, sometimes 30 students.
Yeah.
And that's probably about what it was when you were a student.
Yeah, that's right.
And do you think that that's beneficial to both the faculty and the students?
Oh, I think so. If a class is too big, even when it gets up to about 30, excuse me, when it gets up to about 30 or so, that's pretty big.
And so you would...
I like it when it's around 15 students or so.
Yeah.
Because then you got more interaction with the students. Yeah.
And what do you think, having such a long span of history with the college, what do you think like the most important change was? Like what the best difference is now versus then?
The biggest change, one of the most important changes, is when we went co-ed.
Mm-hmm.
And we had women coming in. So that meant that we were getting a population of students that was better than what we had when it was just men, because now we've got some very bright women coming in as well, and believe me, we had plenty that way, and that was, I think, maybe the biggest change. That's one change. The other change is the growth of professional schools. We've always had professional majors like accounting, okay, and so and management and that. Well, that eventually then became like a school of management, and with accounting as a part of that. So we always had that, but now we've grown to where now we have a whole school of management. We have a nursing school. That was another big change too, by the way. That happened around the time when the provost was Dr. Wendell Howard. I think is when the nursing program got started. So that gave us a professional edge there, but it was a nursing department. But see, now it's a nursing school. We had education courses. Okay, so there'd be guys that wanted to be teachers. All right, so you take a few education courses. But now we have a whole school of education. It's a much more complicated thing,
mm-hmm.
more extensive kind of thing than what we had. But that's another professional school. Let's see, what else do we have? Well, pharmacy. Yeah, just go to that one. That's probably the quintessential professional school here on campus.
Mm-hmm.
One of the bad things about that relationship is that they run on a little different schedule from the rest of the college. And furthermore, we don't have that much opportunity to get to know who all their faculty are. We get to know a few. I can say that I probably know 3 of the faculty in pharmacy, but that's it.
Now, the faculty obviously today is a lot bigger than it was. It also, we don't have, we still have a couple priests that are teachers here, but not to the extent that it used to be.
That's right.
Do you think that would, something was lost in that transition? Or?
I think there's a loss there. Of course, the Basilian Fathers that founded the college, they don't have a lot of new blood coming in. So the thing is, as time went on, it became apparent that the Basilians wouldn't be able to supply us with a faculty, or at least a number of faculty members. So the result is that we really have probably no more than maybe the 1 or 2 that might be teaching now. And that's unfortunate in a way, because you're losing something about a very important part of its founding history by the fact that you don't have, say, 7 or 8 priests who are full-time faculty. That would be an interesting thing. I think an interesting thing for the faculty as a whole, Catholic or not, to get to know some of these people. These are priests and Catholic religion, and we never met one before, or something like that. It would be kind of a good thing to, I think, to have that. But I don't think the Basilians could supply us. Yeah, they just don't have the manpower.
Especially with the growth that we have had.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, do you think that the fundamental principles that were taught when the school was created are still taught today, or still leave an impression on the students of today? Or?
I think it still does, yeah. But it's a bit different from what it was, because back in the day when this was an obviously Catholic college, then the various principles and ideas are informed by Catholic teachings. You don't quite have that now. We have a little bit of it still. Excuse me. Campus ministry, I think, does a pretty good job in that regard, to kind of keep more of the religious flavor that the college maybe had in the past.
Now, at the founding of the college, Father Murphy stated that all faiths were welcome and that the classes didn't have to necessarily be composed of people who were Catholic. And when you came here, did you notice that there were people who weren't as religious as others, or a lot came from a Catholic high school?
Yeah, probably most of the students had Catholic background, either from a Catholic school or otherwise. They would have been Catholic. So that wasn't a problem. However, that said, yeah, among that group, say 110 incoming freshmen at the time, there'd be a number of them that are a little less religious, some maybe a little more, and so forth. So, yeah. And, I don't know of anybody, thing is, I don't think anybody in my class became a priest.
Yeah. And then today, obviously, that statement of diversity is a lot stronger. And do you think that, like, if you could talk to your professors today, what do you think that they would say about what the college has become?
Oh boy, there's a tough one. What would they say? Well, it depends. It depends on the professor that you talk to. There'd be a few who would say that the Catholic element of the college is gone. Yeah, and they would grunt and groan about it. Then there are others who would say, no, there are various activities that we do on campus that have a very strong religious component, in that it's involved with service. So service and service scholars, service programs that we do. Those are all part of what, religion should be about anyway. And that's a big thing on campus here, all this activity involving service. So I have to say that you're going to get different opinions.
Yeah.
There may be some people who might just say, "Oh, I'm glad." They'll say that they're glad that they don't have any strong religious attitude here on campus. They're quite glad to have it very secular, and there are others who might moan about it and just say, "Oh, I wish we had it back." Where do I fit? Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Are you happy with the direction that the college has gone?
So far.
Yeah.
So far, yeah. I do hope that we don't get more professional schools, however. I don't think that's going to be a good thing. We have to really make sure that the core of the academic life here is liberal arts. We have to have that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be like everybody else.
And I think personally as a student, we have a very strong liberal arts core.
Yes.
I have to take math classes that I
Yes.
might not be as interested in as other students. But do you think that it's to the same extent that you guys had a liberal arts core when you were a student here?
It's quite a bit different because now I think the liberal arts core is more diffuse than what it was back then. Because back then, we had to take every semester one philosophy course, every semester one theology course, and then, of course, all the courses for your major, and so on. But nowadays, you can fulfill the core in a lot of different ways, having nothing to do with philosophy or or religion. So it's a more diffuse kind of thing here, because we have a diversity part of the core. We didn't have that kind of thing. Diversity? What's that? we didn't know what that was back then.
And so obviously Fisher has had an impact on your life because you have spent so much of it here.
Yes, yeah.
And what do you think the biggest impact? The school or the family or the people who, like the priests who were the founding, what do you think the biggest impact on your life was?
Well, the biggest impact, I think, certainly back when you mentioned the priests that we had in those early days. Boy, bad business. All these men were highly educated people with degrees from Toronto and other places, for example, around the world. So we had a world-class faculty, I think, back then. I think we could see those people back in those days, where we were. I think many of us could say that we were lucky that we could sit at their feet. Yeah.
Now, is there anything else that you'd want to add? Any interesting effects? Or?
Well, what I would say is that our first president, Father Murphy, was outstanding. Father Murphy was an English professor, and in our first semester, Father Murphy actually taught the English course that all of the freshmen had to take. However, the demands of the presidency became a bit much, so he couldn't do that because he had to do more to get out into the community. So Father Murphy's job was to take this unknown college and make it known. And he did it. He did a great job on that. He was a superb individual, one of the best teachers I've ever had, as it turns out. I have a list of 5 teachers that are the best that I've ever had, going from grammar school up through graduate school. And Father Murphy ranks as one of the 5. Yeah.
That's awesome.
First president of the college doing that.
And do you think that because he was the president, but he was also your professor and your friend, and you knew him, do you think that is something that was very important? Do you think that because we've lost that, we've lost something valuable?
Come to think about it, yeah. Because the presidency of a college is such a demanding job. You're just not going to see the president as much as we were able to back then. And even after Father Lavery came here, and then when I came on the faculty, Father Lavery was the president, you would see Father Lavery around every now and then. He knew mostly everybody. But it's a different kind of a thing. With Father Murphy, it was a much different situation. Now, that's not to say you can't know the current presidents, such as Dr. Bain. Now, of course, Dr. Bain had been a faculty member for about 30 years or so. Okay. He becomes president. Everybody knows him. Okay. That's sort of an outlier of a president, you might say. Now we have Dr. Rooney, whose job had been admissions and enrollment. And a lot of people don't really know him. Now, they're going to get to know him, and he's a very approachable guy. But when I think back on somebody like Murphy, here's a guy who's a professor. He's interested in you in a much different way than an ordinary professor might be interested, because here we were, a college that was unknown, had no reputation whatsoever, and Murphy got things going.
Yeah.
And so he cared about us to make sure that we were going to succeed.
Yeah.
So
he wanted you to do well.
Well, yeah. Otherwise, his whole job would have been a failure if that had happened. So he had to, you might say, do that. We also had a good dean, Father O'Mara. O'Mara, you might say, was like the top sergeant, and Murphy was the general, so to speak. And O'Mara really made sure that the academics were tough. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been so great talking to you. You've had such an interesting perspective. So.
Well, you're entirely welcome. I think this is a great project.
Yes, and hopefully we continue with other graduating classes throughout. So.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Very good.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.